Spokane listens when business talks. Welcome to Business Talks, the region's only local business talk show with your host, Ryan McNeice. Business Talks is brought to you by our friends at STCU and Well Dressed Walrus. Now, let's get down to business with Business Talks.
Welcome to Business Talks. I'm Ryan McNeice, and we're here in the studio with Matt Santangelo, Executive Director of Spokane Hoopfest. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We had you in last year and had a great conversation as we were leading up to yet another great year of Hoopfest. Matt, what can we expect this year in 2018?
Well, you know, last year we had the pleasure and the honor of hosting at the time, a very hot basketball player, and Kevin Durant, the NBA Finals MVP. So the blessing and the curse is we got Kevin Durant here. He had a good time. But now the question is, what are we doing this year? Because you got to do
follow
Yes,
that?
Exactly.
But you are right. That actually, I would say, it almost went viral. I mean,
it was a wonderful
everybody
moment.
was talking
Yeah,
about
it
that.
really was a wonderful moment, and it was great from certainly from the Hoopfest community of Spokane perspective, but also Nike and Kevin Durant. You know, they came and enjoyed it too, which is every bit as important. Because when you talk about things like Hoopfest, you talk about the breadth and scope, the numbers, number of teams and players, and number of courts. But until you see it, it's hard to really kind of wrap your mind around exactly how big and massive the thing is.
And to understand that magnitude, you're absolutely right. Until you really see the aerial shots of the, again, the extremity of the volunteers that are literally putting tape on all these courts until the wee hours of the night. How many volunteers do participate generally?
About 2,500 to 3,000 volunteers to pull it off.
And is that pretty consistent from year to year?
Yeah.
That's what's necessary to make this work?
Yep, that's exactly right. And so that's from, we talk about court monitors and marshals, the men and women that are literally managing those games for those 2 days. But there are roles leading up to the weekend that are volunteer roles, and on the weekend from our master scoreboard to our retail experience to our, you name it, there's kind of the more shift-like volunteer responsibilities. But those court monitors, those women and men that spend 2 days out there on those streets, they're the ones that make this whole thing go without question.
Well, and Matt, I think as you're describing the different aspects of putting on a major event like this, individuals might think, but it's a one-time-a-year event. But this is an all-year planning, orchestrating. Tell us what goes into that.
So I'll tell you right now, because what I came from my office to here to speak with you today, I'm literally buying next year's 2019 Nike order. So we're
before you even get to
before I even know
18.
what's going to sell, I'm trying to guess colors and things for next year, and that's what we do that internally in the office. So it simultaneously today we were working on the customization of 2018's retail assortment, and we do that with the 6 members of the staff, and then we're buying next year's. So we talk about, I always kind of alluded, I heard a great analogy with the Golden Gate Bridge. As soon as if you're painting the Golden Gate Bridge, as soon as you get that last stroke done, you immediately go back to the front and start painting again, and that's exactly what Hoopfest is.
And good example with how you're describing the 2019 purchases and decisions, in that you don't even know for sure if you're right about 18 because you haven't got there yet.
No clue.
And then 19, you're already making the decisions.
You're totally guessing on it. But that's kind of the volume we buy from Nike, is that we have to be in their production runs, and this is how far out that they're making the productions for spring, summer of 19. So it just kind of happens. But you kind of bang your head against the wall sometimes. And I'm like, I got to buy for next year? Can I just get through this week on what's going on for this year?
A little bit of added stress.
Yeah.
With such a well-known major event that you guys have done such a fantastic job of, with you got Bloomsday, you got Hoopfest, that are major iconic symbols for Spokane, and for any of us that live here, we're proud of what's been done with that. What type of numbers are we looking at right now for 2018, and maybe how does that compare kind of year over year?
So we kind of are planning, budgeting for 6,000 teams, and we have capacity for a little bit more than that. So 6,000 teams plus or minus a couple hundred on either side. That's going to cover 422 courts. There'll be close to 14,000 basketball games on the weekend. That'll bring 23,000 plus players, individual players on those teams. And then our metrics, which we work with Gonzaga University every couple of years to kind of come in and do that economic impact and that survey type of nature on site. We're about a 4-to-1 ratio, meaning 4 fans to every player. So you're looking at Saturday, you're looking at about 125,000 people in downtown Spokane, and of course they all come back on Sunday.
Absolutely.
And then you kind of do a multiplier on the financial side, and for that economic impact to our community, that's roughly about a $50 million economic impact to the region. You know, we know when everyone's here, you know, they're buying their snow cone, or they're staying in the hotel, or they're going to restaurants. All that adds up.
Speaking of snow cones, what was it a couple of years ago? We were well over 100 degrees.
We were 108 on Saturday, the hottest day ever recorded in June. But Hoopfest, we like to break records, so we were hotter on Sunday. Well, but that was a couple years ago. This year is going to be 78 and perfect, so just get registered.
Just mild and perfect.
Right.
And you're already making the decision for the weather in 2018.
Oh, yeah. I put, because my first year, which was 2014, it rained. And so all year long, I'm doing the no rain dance. Well, I forgot to put a ceiling on the temperature.
Exactly.
And then next year,
careful
2015,
careful
was
what you
right,
ask
right.
for. You know, in all seriousness, though, it's incredible that you've had just year over year for the duration of Hoopfest. You've significantly over time had great weather.
Yeah.
I mean, to choose the weekend you guys choose.
Yeah, Farmer's Almanac.
That's the way to go.
That's how they decided it in 1990 or 1989 when they were planning the first Hoopfest. They kind of selected this weekend, and it's always the last Saturday in June. And ironically, this year in 2018, that will be June 30th and July 1st. We actually go into July with the Sunday event.
Well, just before we started the show, we were talking about Gonzaga, and goes without saying, everybody knows Matt Santangelo and your Gonzaga fame and run in the late 90s. What type of participation are you planning with some of the alumni from Gonzaga with Hoopfest this year? Yeah, so
2 years ago we started an alumni game, 5-on-5 game that featured in that first year Gonzaga only. So we kind of did a red-blue scrimmage. In year number 2 last year, we wanted to up the ante competitively, so we invited University of Washington. So the next evolution, which this year in 2018, we've partnered with something called the basketball tournament. And for people who are familiar with the summer basketball tour, it's a $2 million tournament, meaning it's NCAA single elimination style, bracket, and the winning team literally walks away with $2 million. It's the year number 5 of their event, and they're bringing a Hoopfest pod, which will include a team from Gonzaga, A Few Good Men is the name of that team, a team from University of Utah, a team from Air Force Academy, all alumni based. I'm really excited about the Air Force Academy. I think with the tie to Fairchild in our community, I think it's fantastic. And then the 4th team, every good pod needs a villain, and St. Mary's has agreed to come up.
So
it kind of, and that'll be Friday, a Saturday of Hoopfest up at LC High School, ticketed event, and of course we'll throw a party around it as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, again, Spokane is so loyal to our Gonzaga Bulldogs, so good job for tying that in, I think, in such a substantial way. Throughout this year, as you moved from the 17 production of Hoopfest to 18, what are some of the, not only the challenges, but also some of the exciting progressions that you've made?
Well, there's two things, and especially for your audience, that I think Hoopfest is really interesting. Obviously, we are subject to all construction. So we, downtown with the park certainly, but streets, new developments, the business community, we kind of get a seat at most of those tables to at least be a fly on the wall or get a finger on the pulse of what that development is, which is really exciting.
Well, and how that's going to affect
totally, and just planning, because people, like you said, people are proud of it, and we get a ton of support to be able to execute it. We need a ton of support to be able to execute it. But the other side to that is that when you talk about things that make Spokane recognizable to the larger region and the business community outside of Spokane, you better believe Hoopfest is on that flyer. Things like Bloomsday are on that flyer. Gonzaga basketball is on that flyer.
When you think Visit Spokane,
you're going to think these are those things. So when you talk about what the city's movement now towards an urban experience and what that looks like, I mean, what is your most vibrant and diverse weekend? It's Hoopfest,
absolutely,
without question.
Yep.
And so we get a kind of a seat at the table of some of those conversations. How do we feature our community to be a business-friendly community? If you're going to bring a CEO or CFO into Spokane, you're probably going to do it on Hoopfest weekend. You're going to put them in a boardroom for part of it, and then you're going to walk them outside and go, him or her, and say, look what Spokane can do.
Here's the visual.
Yeah, and so I think that one, personally, my own professional development puts me in a lot of great conversations, being able to try to leverage Hoopfest not only for the success of the weekend, but the broader success of the Spokane community.
What have you... what are the challenges that you've had to overcome in terms of perception or reality of security?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, it goes without saying, all around the country, all around the world, whether it be running events, et cetera, Hoopfest being such a large population event, that is, of course, probably part of the conversation in terms of what do we need to do here in 2018 to be making the right decisions security-wise?
Well, 2017 was really interesting because we actually got contacted by the Department of Homeland Security. And so federal money came into Spokane, not to say this is what you should do as Hoopfest, but literally they used Hoopfest as a tabletop exercise to determine if things went poorly, then what? So it wasn't preventative. It was like, okay, something happens, how do you manage it? And we met out in the valley, we probably had 80 agencies represented, huge, and it was all based on Hoopfest.
80 agencies.
And so what they learned in that process is really how developed our site operations, our crisis management plan are. So we became it was like this, okay, you know, everything breaks loose, what do you do with it? And they were like, oh my gosh, we actually have protocol in place that a volunteer has developed over the 29 years of the Hoopfest life.
Just pragmatically, from a practical standpoint.
Yeah, because we had to. They, you know, and talk about, you know, site-wide, you know, the network, site-wide smart city, site-wide PA system, our eyes on social media that weekend.
Right.
Part of that's fun, but certainly part of that's security, because if something happens, that's where we're all going to see it first.
Eyes on it.
You know, and so a lot of those things we have in place, in addition to our partnership with Spokane Police and Spokane Fire. You know, last year, like Bloomsday, we added some barricades, you know, to really secure some of the streets, and we will continue to do that this year. So we're always looking to kind of revamp that, but that is certainly a large issue that we spend a ton of time on, just the behind the scenes. And if we do it well, no one knows, right?
Exactly.
And, you know, and so that's our job, is in the well-oiled machine of Hoopfest, is to make sure the wizard behind the curtain is getting all the work done.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good point. And, you know, clearly a genuine concern of different individuals all over the country for many, many different genres of events. But Hoopfest having such a great reputation, you guys have certainly done your homework on that.
Yep.
Matt, let's take a short break and come right back and talk more about Hoopfest 2018.
Hi everyone, I'm weather forecaster and assignment anchor at Spokane Talks Online, Colin Pittman, and I am honored to be the host of the new program, Spokane's Youth Spotlight, brought to you by Spokane Talks Online and the Spokesman Review, where we are interviewing and getting to know outstanding youth in our community each month. If you'd like to nominate someone in our community that you think should be recognized, that is doing something great here in the region or has an amazing story, visit SpokaneTalksOnline.com or Spokesman.com and look under Youth Spotlight to nominate. And be sure to tune in each month as we find the best in the Inland Northwest.
The following is sponsored by our friends and community supporters at McNeice Wheeler Attorneys. McNeice Wheeler is a boutique law firm in Spokane, handling matters in both Washington and Idaho. Areas of law include business law, wills, trusts and estates, family law, personal injury and wrongful death, and real estate matters. For your full-service legal needs, contact McNeice Wheeler Attorneys.
Welcome back to Business Talks. I'm Ryan McNeice, and we're here chatting with Matt Santangelo, talking about Hoopfest 2018, and talking about the substantial growth over the years in terms of the necessity of volunteers, the necessity of planning. And you were just indicating earlier in our conversation that over 80 agencies had come together to discuss security and check the boxes that need to be checked to put an event of this size on.
Yeah,
it's impressive. What are some of the things that you see this year, kind of boots on the ground at Hoopfest, that you're super excited about?
Well, I think we kind of talked about that basketball tournament partnership. I think that not only for this year with those three games, Friday and Saturday night, the 2 nights, but the chance for that to be in the future. Like, we could host the West Regional here, which would be 18 teams, which would be a larger, not necessarily on Hoopfest weekend, but that'd be a larger sporting event coming to Spokane. 3-on-3 will be an Olympic sport in 2020.
I heard that.
Yeah.
I heard that. Well,
and so we're
large part due to Hoopfest.
Well, I think Hoopfest definitely has a seat at that table too, which is really an honor, but it's a different style of 3-on-3. So we're working on having a single division. We'll call it an Olympic division.
Sure.
And it's going to be invite only, but we're going to bring in some national teams, Team Canada, the national champion from USA basketball, to really highlight that style of play.
Just briefly, though, what is the difference in the style of play?
So a lot faster.
Interesting.
So 10-minute games, and 12-second shot clocks. You don't have to clear it to the top.
Oh, I was going to say,
so those would be kind of the 3 primary differences then from Hoopfest.
Okay.
So the game's very fast, very, very quick. And that's the FIBA rules, the international governing body for basketball, created that style of 3-on-3.
I actually could see that being really exciting to
yeah,
watch.
so it should be fun.
12-second shot
12
clock.
seconds. It's fast. It's run and gun. Me, at a younger version of me, probably would have enjoyed that game a lot.
These are the Matt Santangelo rules.
Yeah,
Olympic
exactly.
rules.
Just fire away.
Yeah. Well, I think you'd indicated your team, the actual Hoopfest team, is about 6
There's
on staff.
7 seasonal, 6 full-time, and we bring one other person on during this time of year.
And then I think it goes without saying many partners in terms of independent contractors, photographers, etc. Tell us how that works in terms of the promotion of Hoopfest on a year-to-year basis.
Yeah, so we have kind of independent contractors, social media that kind of helps manage that. Obviously, that's a huge platform. That's where a lot of our demographic, live on a daily basis. But then we have, from your site, from simple stuff, fencing, porta potties, barricades, tables and chairs, power generators, to your fancier stuff. Patera is our great network provider. They actually build Spokane into a smart city for us for the weekend, and then we take it all down and put it back in the warehouse. The network capacity we have from literally a citywide sound system and the ability to do a lot of fun things that way makes us really unique in that sense. Certainly the security side, that Nike partnership on our retail, customized basketballs, customized socks, things that they create literally just for Hoopfest in Spokane. Good segue, that tie to Nike in the store that's coming to downtown Spokane.
Absolutely.
We were very instrumental in that particular happening and kind of being an advocate for Spokane in the Nike world and having Nike be familiar with what it's all about.
Going into the M building,
into the M building, right down on Main Street. And so I think all those are just going to continue to just bring that excitement. And it's those partners, because like anything, it's a total labor of love, but they once you lay your eyes on it, you kind of fall in love with it and you go, we have to keep this up because it's doing so many good things, not just on the weekend, but throughout the year, tied to our other programs through Spokane AAU, which we briefly talked about off air, to Ignite Basketball, which is our outreach program, was School District 81, to we go to Vegas 3-on-3 and put our baskets on trucks and drive down to Vegas.
Tell us a little more about that.
Yeah.
Again, all these different events that you're throwing out, I think if individuals would really think through how you're orchestrating each of those kind of monumental tasks and the labor force to make that happen. How does tell us more about the Las Vegas.
Yeah, so MGM approached us 4.5 years ago now. This will be the 3rd year of the event in October. And same idea, they kind of wanted us to build an event, a homegrown event in Las Vegas, and they laid their eyes on Hoopfest, said, we want that.
Can you do that?
Yeah, big
Here,
surprise.
Cut, paste.
Right, yeah. And so we partnered, we're just kind of a subcontractor for them, but we kind of literally from our registration to how we bracket, to how we manage games, to the physical site itself, we are in control of. So we go down with a crew of about 20 to 25. Our 6 staff and then volunteers that we invite down for specific roles depending on what they do at Hoopfest. And we go down and kind of light it up for a weekend.
Is
we
it
pack
branded
it all up.
Hoopfest?
That one's called Las Vegas 3-on-3.
Okay.
It's powered by Spokane Hoopfest.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
so we get branding. Yep. Oh, yeah.
Branding
Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely.
Well, we couldn't do a conversation without, as we mentioned earlier, giving Gonzaga and the Gonzaga loyalty to our community and our basketball community, all of the different athletic events that are going on via Gonzaga and here in Spokane, and that connection to our community. I had an opportunity to be in the new athletic center not too long ago, and just it's unreal to see what, quite frankly, teams like yourself in the late 90s and what you have done for Gonzaga, for the athletic program, the academic side as well, but also for the community tie-in, which is what I'm so impressed with what you've done with Hoopfest, is you've really created a sense of loyalty from getting close to 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And what you're doing now to continue to promote both Gonzaga, but also Hoopfest and the broader Spokane. Just so much appreciation there if people realize how much is really going on behind the scenes.
Well, I think it's really all based in the game of basketball. So if we even go a step broader, besides what's local in Spokane, is that we're a basketball city, and I know we have great events. We're also a great homegrown local city. But when you look at Whitworth's success, certainly Gonzaga's success, what Shantae Lagans is doing out at Eastern,
absolutely,
certain Hoopfest, another example, and then the youth basketball here is so passionate. I mean, certainly what Prep did and CV Girls did. I mean, oh my gosh, so,
isn't that?
It's incredible.
Extremely
national
notable.
Championship and
it's never happened at Spokane.
And Anton Watson at Prep just being invited to USA Basketball U18 national team tryouts. So there always has been a great passion around it. What we're trying to do at Hoopfest, and because of my tie to Gonzaga, my tie certainly now to Hoopfest, and the broader love and passion for the game of basketball, is we're trying to just bring it. We're trying to be that voice.
Yeah.
Not a news reporting, but how do we continue to move that culture? How do we introduce the game to the next generation? How do we instill that sense of pride and those lessons that you learn from the game of basketball? And I clearly have a lot of passion behind it, but I think that's where kind of our responsibility is. So Gonzaga can be Gonzaga, Whitworth can be Whitworth, all these pieces can be good, what they're good at. I want to be the organization that's recognized as the one that's kind of bringing it all together.
The core, the seat at the table, if you will. And you indicated earlier that so much of what's going on, even non-basketball in Spokane, whether it be construction or otherwise, Hoopfest has a seat at the table because of the other instrumental aspects that you've done. And you mentioned some of the other youth programs, ones that have come to my attention recently. Of course, AAU has always been substantial in our area and nationally, and the tie-in with Hoopfest. Built for Ball is a recent one that I hear of. I think it's safe to say that through the different entities that you've talked about over the last 20 years, it's raising the tide for everyone in this basketball community and the broader non-basketball community.
It is, and I think we're the right voice for it, because as a nonprofit, we're a 501c3. I'm not getting rich off of Hoopfest. No one else is either. And certainly basketball, with all the money, especially in the youth world and all those conversations, that's not what this is about. This is just about having a person that gets to, an organization that gets to be at all those different, so you can connect. And you can step out of it, and you can go, well, maybe you need to talk to so-and-so, or this needs to become, we need to engage this audience. And you kind of have a feel, just again, that pulse of what that undercurrent is of basketball in the community. And so that, again, I'm humbled to play a small role in that, but I love it. I mean, it's one of the great things about having the stage and the lights of what Hoopfest provides.
Well, I appreciate that, and more than a humble role, I'll give you more credit than that. I think it's a substantial visual or symbol of what's going on in our basketball community. What is the best way, even though I think we're coming up right to the end of registration, what is the best way for folks that maybe just haven't to either register or find out more about Spokane Hoopfest?
Yep, so website is all the information, www.spokanehoopfest.net. Nothing but net.
Hey,
it works.
That was good.
Yeah, it works.
That was good.
And so that one, registration, today is actually guaranteed registration deadline. It's our first deadline, but we'll keep registration open through the end of May. So you do have a couple more weeks here. Of course, volunteerism will take all the way into June, but you can find all those opportunities specific to Hoopfest on that website. And then after Hoopfest, too, those other programs we've talked about throughout the year and the basketball kind of movement that's happening in Spokane, that's all available through website and or on social media at Spokane Hoopfest, and that's Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Well, as you indicated, registration still is open through the end of May, so if you haven't done it already, get out there and do it. Matt, thanks again. I appreciate you coming in. It's a real highlight in our community. Again, I think for as someone that has been in Spokane for a long, long time, it's something we're definitely proud of, and you're continuing that legacy.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right.
Business Talks is produced in Spokane, Washington by SpokaneTalksOnline.com, which is solely responsible for its content. Ask a question, recommend a guest, and hear this program again online anytime at SpokaneTalksOnline.com. Business Talks is brought to you by our friends at STCU and Well Dressed Walrus. Business Talks wishes you good business and a good day.